Dr. Malem, my question to you is, where do we go from here? Manipur is or even fallen off, unfortunately and tragically, the national media headlines that anyway weren't doing a much focused job, except with some honorable exceptions, and but for the people of Manipur, this is month 5 of this crisis. Are things better? I know it's a strange question to ask on a day when we get news of these children, and now we have, by the way, children leading street protests today. There are school children on the streets, and if we can play those images as well. But Dr. Malem, go ahead.
From divisions, we create wholeness. From disturbances, we have to overcome the situations and bring normalcy. Citizens, affected peoples, progressive sections have various roles to play. But I held the government accountable for all these things on the grounds that they have got enough resources, manpower, and intelligence to resolve this issue. It seems to me that the people in the power, the machineries, seems to be playing with certain geopolitical tactics to aggravate the situations with a larger geopolitical goal. I will not be able to elaborate these things too long in this short interview, but since the government is fully responsible for this, and then the situation is aggravated by its proxy elements, radical sections who has less concerns for humans' dignity and peace and order, but very sectarian and chauvinist sections from across the communities who are largely responsible for igniting these situations, playing into the game being orchestrated and designed for them by the big powerful forces. It will take time for people to realize these things. But people like me and you who want to overcome the situations must magnify our democratic concerns so that peoples unite across the communities and across the regions, and to press upon the government to use its intelligence, its power, its nexus, everything to bring normalcy of the situation
When
as soon as possible.
when you say you hold the government responsible, do you mean the state government? Do you mean the central government? Do you mean both?
When I say state, the Manipur government functions as a subset of the entire big Indian state. When I say government, I'm telling you about the entire system, entire government, which also includes the central government and its agency, the Manipur state government.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Dr. Malem, when you have a situation where children are no longer safe, so whether it is these two teenagers who have been killed, whether before that there was a half kuki, half Meitei baby who was killed when he was traveling with his mother in an ambulance, or there are child combatants, there are children holding guns, and you have the civilian population armed. When even children are not safe in a crisis, why do you think there hasn't been more urgency shown in Manipur?
Maybe some peoples are benefiting from this violence and disturbances. It could be one of the reasons that we are not able to bring immediate solutions. At the same time, peoples who are not able to see a peaceful solutions are, being compelled to drag into this conflict because of the prevailing disturbance situations. There can be many multiple factors for this. But I think every crisis come to an end for various reasons. We have seen many great wars in the world, and we have seen series of communal classes in Manipur, starting from the 1950s, and then in 1992 to 96, 97, 93. But things, after lots of casualties, people realized and resettled. And the present crisis, which have started from the 3rd May, is another episode. Compared to the long-lasting clash between the Nagas and the Kukis from 1992 to 96, it means it's still the short interval. Yes, short interval. This is not long. It's a short period. I am not glorifying this crisis, but I'm only saying that there has to be some solutions, and obviously, solution will have to come. And that's what I believe in.
So let me ask you in the end to give your prescription, as it were, for how to move from this sort of de facto, division. I want to use the word. It's a de facto, not a de jure, but a de facto division where today cookies are afraid to come into Imphal and Meiteis are afraid to go to Churachandpur. It's a kind of invisible line. Highways are blockaded. both sides are, they'll still say some of our best friends. The Kukis will say some of my best friends are Meiteis. The Meiteis will say some of my best friends are Kukis. And yet, politically, the division is so deep today that very few people are talking across the divide. How do we begin talking across the divide? How do we begin to make suffering not a competitive sport?
See, violence has to stop. Any kind of armed aggression has to be stopped temporarily if we really want peace. For this message has to be uh, reaching to the peoples who are engaged in this conflict. And from the Meitei side, they will obviously say that the armed cookie aggressions on the vulnerable village should be stopped. Otherwise, we will not retaliate. They are saying that their action is one of retaliations. Number two, government should rethink the suspension of operations. And since Modi ji, the Home Minister, has promised that it will handle the situation in the cookie-dominated areas, it should prove it by work and deed, and government knows the sentiment of the two groups, and they should try to implement this interest without compromising the prospect of living together, coordination and progress. So the priorities should be stopping the violence. Number two, relief and resettlement. Peoples who want to go back has to be resettled with foolproof security. Likewise, communication has to start it. A government should clear the national highways from any kind of obstructions. Blockages and extortions on the highways should be stopped. We are aware of the fact that extortion in the cookie dominated areas, particularly on the routes passing through the national highways, have been repeatedly harassed and blocked, and huge monies is being collected, which are in fact suspected to be using to this war politics. So all this has to be stopped. Arms should be uh, there has to be,
Confiscated.
yes,
Yeah,
confiscated.
disarming.
Plus, sources of arms has to be obstructed, and that should be the first step. And secondly, confidence building, relief, rehabilitations has to take place, and gradually security have to be provided to any vulnerable sections, to any vulnerable areas, sensitive areas. Likewise, gradually it may take time, but people's confidence will obviously develop. There are many people who still want to live together, and this kind of people will be, majority in number, but their voice have been suppressed. So the suppressed voices of the democratic peoples who believed in a progressive Manipur has to be promoted. Their voice has to be rise up, and their aspirations has to be fulfilled through government's initiatives. Plus, gradually, if these things takes place, then obviously, civil society organizations and etc. could
Yes,
jump in. But when there is guns everywhere, it's difficult for civil society organizations to penetrate.
absolutely. Dr. Malan, thank